Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of TFT Hyperroll with Artark as we continue on our adventure through Set 8, Monsters Attack. If you aren't already cringing, let me make it worse by asking you to like, comment, and subscribe, because it helps the video get out into YouTube land. Is that cringeworthy enough? Anyway, let's get into this build. It's one I went over in the big giant video. I'll throw in a link above if you want to watch 33 minutes of running through Monsters Attack builds and augments and stuff. And while I find this build infinitely forcible, it is obviously much easier if it just gives me one of the core champions right out of the gate. There's a KaiSa, and so yeah, we're doing some Recon Brawlers. It even made it easier when it gave me the option for some one-cost augments. Now, I decide to go ahead and roll it in the hope that I could get exactly that. Cull the Meek. This to me is one of the strongest hero augments you can get. Okay, let's roll it back and take a look at why. So in general, your team does 12% bonus damage, which is tripled against enemies below 50% health. You're going to be doing a ton of damage with this. And I start off running into someone who got the really fun one, the stacks on stacks, so they are going for Stack Nasus. I'm not quite sure why they went with a Warmogs on him, though. That is not the best item for the stacks build. I can only think at this point their hope is to take it off a little bit later when they can enhance his damage. So for this, I'm automatically thinking about my KaiSa items, and Tear of the Goddess is key. I want a Spear of Sojun on her. Now, I briefly mentioned this in a big video, but let's take a moment to look at KaiSa's ult. Notice that her active is that she gains 45% attack speed for 10 seconds and that the bonus stacks. This is why I like Spear of Sojun as an item, because as her attack is stacking, she's going to be casting more and more often, keeping the stacking going, and you don't necessarily need a Rageblade for her. With Cull the Meek, I like to start with my Brawlers as that part of the build because the backline is going to be doing additional damage, especially once they get below 50% health. They will go down fairly quickly. Now remember, this still is the PBE, so I'm relying on Ava for my inside help, but she must have been there because I had a 2-star KaiSa before I even got an Ezreal. But I also have a Vayne on my bench, so I am in good shape with Recons. When it comes to items, I am dancing between both Vayne and KaiSa items. I'd like to finish out the KaiSa items, but there's nothing here that's really going to fit, so I could pick up the bow and use it to create a Last Whisper. I can go ahead and put that on Ashe right now with plans on changing it over to Vayne once Vayne comes into the match. And here you get a glimpse of what makes Recon so special. If things are able to get into the backline, your Recons can get away and continue to do damage. This is a really easy choice for a couple of reasons. We're going to grab Portable Forge, but the reason is Jeweled Lotus is not necessary. That is part of the Recon trait, and a Tome of Traits doesn't do us any good because we don't need additional traits. The big question is what item to take here. Manazane is a tempting item for KaiSa, but not really enough. I decide to go ahead and get the Death's Defiance for Renekton so that he can just last longer. Now that I have a 2-star Ashe, when I get a chance, I can take the Last Whisper and bring it over to Vayne, but for right now, I'm just tanking up Renekton. And now you'll see why I consider this sort of the classic TFT build. There's the strong front line, the attack backline just doing the damage. The strong front line holds them in place while the backline takes them out. The NPC round gave us lots of neat toys to play with, but we do get an item choice, and since I have been wanting a Spear of Sojun for KaiSa since the very beginning, it's time to grab the BF sword. We can take that, put that right on KaiSa, and that is going to help her speed immensely. Now, since I already have 4 Recon, I do not need a Jeweled Gauntlet on KaiSa. Yes, I just put a Rageblade on KaiSa. I probably should have gone Rebadons Deathcap, but I just decided to try this out in this particular match, and it worked. But in general, I'll tell you, go with power over speed once you have the Spear of Sojun. With that said, if your champion's on fire, as we are right now, and you want to just really increase the speed fast, you can go with this, but you'll see she's going to max out her speed really fast, and then you're just not going to get any benefit from her ult. As for positioning, you could either spread them out like this or clump your recons together. It doesn't really matter since they are going to jump out of the way if something gets near them. I usually like to start with them spread out and see how that goes. The final augment is prismatic, and since I don't need Tome of Traits and I find Future Sight not necessary and I have a sparring glove on the side, I figure the lucky gloves are the way to go. This will allow me to get ideal items onto champions because that's what lucky gloves are supposed to do, always give you the best possible. Remember how I said you can't pick up the anvil until you clear your bench, so someone's gonna have to go. I had picked up Rammus as I planned to get him into the match as the 9th player, but I have another item that I can make use of. Here you'll be able to see the hacker trait in full swing as LeBlanc jumps into the back lane, but KaiSa dashes away as soon as she's ready to cast. That is the beauty of Recon. She gets out of the way and is able to finish them off, leading the damage charts. And while I originally planned to move that last Whisper over to Vayne, now that we have lucky gloves, I just grabbed the second sparring glove, put that on Vayne, and we now have lucky gloves on Vayne, so we are getting the perfect item combinations from our recons. And the NPC round is over and we have our anvil, but remember, do not rush to open it until after you get offered your next item. That glitch is currently still present in the PBE. I would wait a couple of weeks before I jump on opening the anvils before grabbing the items. Once you grab the item, it's perfectly safe to open up the anvil. We can go ahead and put the Giant Slayer onto Ezreal, so all of our recon units have at least some type of additional damage. We are 1 Ashe away from gold, so the Deathblade might come in really handy, especially with our champion duplicator. And the Cull the Meek trait is really helping us out this time. You can see how quick our team is just mowing through targets. We have them completely done within 16 seconds of the start. And I just want to talk about the front line for a moment. As I mentioned, generally I just try to get the highest star, highest cost champs I can. The one I'm obviously holding on to is Renekton because he has the augment, but I'm also made sure to bring in Sejuani because along with Ashe, that gives me just a little extra damage with Laser Corp. Since I now have just 2 KaiSas away, I decided to give up on trying to go for the gold Rammus and hope I can get the gold KaiSa. And this build kind of gets to this point where there's not a lot that can be done against it. The front line is so strong, and since the back line is going to jump out of the way when anything gets near it, it's very, very hard to beat. And with that victory, we are into the top 4. And it's time to bring in our extra threat champion. We could bring in a defender if we were facing a lot of really high damage teams, but threat Rammus just does fantastic as well. And luckily, with Ava at her desk, I'm able to get the extra KaiSa, so I now have a 3-star KaiSa. And for our penultimate item choice, I could grab the Edge of Night for Ashe or the Hextech Gunblade for Ezreal, but in all reality, I'd rather just tank up the front line a little bit more so I can grab the Locket, throw it onto Rammus, and then that front line becomes nearly impenetrable. I get one more item out of the anvil, and let's just add more tank to the situation, grab a Sunfire Cape, put that onto Rammus, and we're really good to go. The first victim is a Heart team that, in all honesty, I'm a little confused by because they don't have Soraka out there. She is so key and she's sitting on the bench. A Heart team could actually do real damage to this, especially with Soraka, because Soraka can reach into your backline and attack from her backline. So there's no way for them to get out of the way, but we managed to get through it pretty easily. And we are back against the Heart team, who, while they have now added Soraka, was not lucky enough to get the Syndra, who's sitting in my shop at the moment. I know I have this game won, so I just apologize because it's about to be a slaughter with KaiSa able to just dash all over the board and really inflict some serious damage. The 3-star KaiSa puts in over 12,000 damage, and it's GG to everyone. Brawler, Recon, give it a try. It's not that contested, and as always, I hope you have an absolutely awesome day.